Week 17 of the NFL season is here. It kicks off tonight, so it's time to make our picks for every game this weekend today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Krabs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100.
Joe, week 17. The end is almost here. That light at the end of the tunnel, it's getting bigger. And the good news is we have clinched above 500 records.
Oh, wow.
For the pick'em.
That was the goal for sure. Yeah.
I guess if you're not familiar with the Thursday shows, or if you're stumbling upon us for the first time, welcome. Joe gave you the whole spiel, right? But on Thursdays in season, we preview all the games, we make our picks, and the show picks against the spread. The show, in the summertime, we grade all the rosters. There's a numerical assignment based on the classifications we give the players. It comes up with this roster ranking. We then implement coaching layers, some other layers, and then we have a methodology that we apply to determine what the spread of the game should be based on who's available to play in each of the games. We've done that week over week, year to date. And Joe, I'm here to tell you that the show, I'll start with the show because I think this is a more impressive figure. 56% against the spread.
Killing it.
Just we did the evaluation, we adjust the rosters based on who's playing, and you put the two teams against each other, and whatever it says, you take that against the spread, and that decides what side of the books that you pick on FanDuel. 56% against the spread year to date with 2 weeks left.
22-10 the last 2 weeks.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned that because that seems pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. It took us to the end of the year to really have our assessments really fall in line, but that's okay.
We've already talked about how we can make it better for next year, so we're doing good. But
and we will. You and I, however, we're just doing pick 'em. We don't pick spreads. We're separated by a game with 2 weeks left. Do you feel any pressure? Courtesy, shout out to my Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
For
you and Arthur Smith, you got it done, baby. Got it done last week.
Well, I'm about to bounce right back out of Atlanta with who they have this week. So he's not going to get any grace with me this week as they play the Bears. But
am I feeling pressure? I mean, look, I'm going to try to pick the team that I think is going to win the games, and if that results in me having more than you at the end of it, you know, we'll celebrate a little bit, and if not, we'll have to reassess.
We'll play them all and see what happens.
Play them all, see what happens. Yeah, running out of games to play, Kyle Krabs, as you would say yesterday.
One Joe Marino-ism of the year is play them all and see what happens.
Dude, you should. So my brother Frank, we watched the Bills games together, and the Bills have not really started a lot of games very well. And the Bills will get down, and my brother will get into the dumps. So I'll be like, let's play the whole game and see what happens, man. He's probably so tired of it. So between me saying that to you and me saying that to him, I think I maybe exhausted those talking points. But well, it's really true. They keep score the whole time, right?
They do. And touchdowns. What was the Pete Carroll clip I sent you?
Can you win the game in the first quarter?
No.
The second quarter?
No.
The third quarter?
No.
Can you win the game in the fourth quarter?
That's right. You win the game in the fourth quarter.
But it all counts, though. You know, that's the thing about it.
And touchdowns count the same, and field goals count the same the entire time. There's
always worth the same amount of points.
What's the 3-point shooting contest with the last ball?
Yeah, there's extra points for that. And you also can't score 9 points on one play. You know what I mean? That's another thing.
Some quarterbacks would beg to differ with how they play sometimes. But
little known fact. Let's pick these games, man.
We did year to date.
Yep.
we've got 10 billion 1 o'clock games.
Yep.
And so I don't know why I put Saturday with the 1 o'clock slate in the guide here on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
We're going to do Thursday night football and Saturday football and then see where the time's at.
Yeah, let's do it.
Jets at Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns, one of 3 teams in the AFC mathematically with a chance. The 1 seed in the AFC, led by Joe Flacco right now. This offense has come alive a little bit, but Joe, I do think one thing that is particularly interesting about this game, you don't love it from a Jets offense perspective against the Browns.
Yeah, not at all.
But Jets defense against a Browns offense that has turned the ball over 9 times in the last 4 games. There is some opportunities for wild, wacky bounces of the ball in this game.
I think you should pick the Jets.
I'm not going to. I'm going to pick the Browns at home. But I'm just saying, I do think that is an interesting subplot for this game, is for all of the talk of all the yards that Joe Flacco is putting up. But Joe Flacco's got 7 picks and 4 starts.
There's a path for the Jets, no question. And maybe if it was at MetLife, we could have that conversation. But that Browns defense is different at home. Everything's right there for Cleveland. And the Jets, credit to them for the strangest game ever against Washington last week and coming back and winning and blowing it and then winning it again. All of that's really good. But the team with everything to lose is the home team on a short week. We're going with the Browns.
Right. Yeah. And I know better than to pick against you on Thursday Night Football home team on a short week. So I'm also in line.
What if I would have picked the Jets? That would have been something.
For the record, the Browns are favored by 7.5 points.
That might be too much.
The show has it at 5.5.
Yeah.
Which means the show is going to be on the Jets to cover 7.5. And I love that it's over a touchdown, right? Because then it's the backdoor possibilities there are wide open for the Jets. So the show is all by its lonesome on Jets covering spread, but you and I think the Browns win the game. Let's go to Saturday, which is a big-time game.
Oh, boy.
I'm pumped up that this is a standalone game so we can watch it. The Detroit Lions are at Dallas, where the Cowboys are invincible, apparently, because they're favored by 6 points on the FanDuel books.
So this is tough because I've watched Dallas the last 2 weeks and I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed with their operation.
Yep.
And I understand they're a different team at home, but it's now been a little bit of time since they've been in those friendly confines of AT&T Stadium. I don't know. That offense doesn't seem like it's clicking to me. It feels like everything's hard. They've given up production. Obviously, the Bills gashed them in the run game quite a bit. Detroit can certainly do that. I think the second level of that defense is an absolute mess. I think they need Hankins. I think this game being indoors is helpful as well for Detroit.
Right. It's an offense that historically, or at least with this regime and Jared Goff, has not necessarily traveled as effectively as what it plays at home.
The X factor to me is the Detroit defense. What does it look like? You know what I mean? That's where I struggle with this game. Can they can they play decent in this one? Because if so, I think they can win the game.
You know what this one's going to be? This is going to be a repeat of the Thursday game with Seattle for Dallas. You know, remember that game 41-35?
Yeah.
I think this is going to be that kind of game. So I think you should take the over. I don't know what the game total's at, but
yeah, it's probably a good over game. Who's going to flinch here first, man? You got a convictions on this one?
Okay, so we'll start with this. The show thinks that 6 points is entirely too high.
I agree.
The show thinks this is about a coin toss game. So the show has Detroit covering a 6-point spread. If I had to guess which offensive operation I think can have more success against the opposing defense, I think I'm going to pick the Cowboys. I don't love it, and I think it's a legit coin toss game. But if I think about Detroit and how they play, and Dallas and defensively and how they play, you don't have a quarterback that's a threat to run. You don't have a lot of explosiveness outside of Jamison Williams in the skill group. So I think they can play man coverage. And does that give you an opportunity to stick an extra hat in the box and try to load the box against the run game? As compared to Detroit and their defense trying to match everything that Dallas can do. And I think Dak's playing at a higher level, and they're at home. So I'm going to pick Dallas to win the game.
I'm going to lean into the team that's more desperate. I think it's Dallas. I think they need some momentum.
Wow. I thought you were going Detroit.
They're at home. Everything within me wants to pick Detroit. But I can't ignore how good Dallas has been at home. And the fact that I think they're the more desperate team in this game. And the Lions are coming off of a hat and T-shirt game. They won the North. Like,
there you go.
Can you see a little letdown here on a short week on the road?
Yep.
All right. I think that's a smart play, but I'll be kicking myself if the Lions wind up winning this game. Folks, you'll be kicking yourself if you don't check out Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the funnest, most exciting, easiest way to play daily fantasy sports. The format is incredible. It's just you against the numbers. It's not you against thousands of other players, including pros and including sharks. It's just you against numbers. Here's what you do. You select 2 or more players. You pick more or less than their projected stats. You place your entry. That's it. Doesn't take long. Picks can be made in under a minute. And then when you win, the withdrawals are super, super quick. I love all these sports right now. And they're more exciting when you have an entry going into games. You can mix and match. You can pick some NFL stuff. You can mix it with NBA, NHL, college sports. It's all there for you. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
So the next game on our slate, Joe, is the Tennessee Titans at the Houston Texans. Sounds like C.J. Stroud's going to be back for this game, which is a big boost for Houston. Desperately needed it. Houston's favored by 4.5 points at home, according to FanDuel. The show has this spread at 5 points in favor of Houston. So the show has Houston covering the 4.5 point spread. I haven't quite decided what I'm picking yet, but I would like to offer you a take.
Okay.
My take is Tennessee is going to ruin somebody's season in the AFC South. They finish at Houston and Jacksonville.
Probably so.
They're going to get somebody.
I know who I'm picking in this game.
Okay, be my guest.
I'm picking Houston. And here's why. I think their run defense has really been terrific lately. They've held their last 3 opponents under 80 rushing yards. They've held 4 of their last 5 under 82 rushing yards. I think that's going to be important against Tennessee, where if you can try to make them one-dimensional, we know Houston with C.J. Stroud can score points. I think that winds up happening. And the only thing that concerns me, if a C.J. Stroud comes back and tries to make up for lost production, right, like just not playing a smart football game, that concerns me a lot. But I think they have the path to making Tennessee one-dimensional, and I think that's going to help them a ton. Give me Houston at home.
Okay. I'll make it interesting. I'll go Tennessee.
All right, there it is.
We've talked about Houston being a young team. I don't necessarily, and I know that there's been some instances, including the last time when these two teams played just the other week, where Houston won in overtime at Tennessee without C.J. Stroud. Houston had some success running the football, but I think the reliability of Houston's rushing offense is a little suspect. I think they are still banged up in a lot of phases, and I think Tennessee getting tagged the way that they did at the end of the game last time can be a nice little motivating factor. So give me the Tennessee Titans to defeat the Houston Texans.
Fun. All right.
I will not be deviating off of the script here with this one. We already teased this game, and I think you're on board with me. Chicago is hosting Atlanta, and the Bears are hot. The Falcons are Jekyll and Hyde. The books have it at Chicago -3. The show actually likes Atlanta, not just to cover the spread, but actually outright. So the show has Atlanta covering 3-point spread, getting 3 points. I am picking the Bears to win the game, though.
this game was in Atlanta, I'd pick Atlanta. But dome team going to Chicago in late December, don't like that. Give me the Bears.
All right. We'll keep it moving since there's 15 billion 1 o'clock games. Miami, warm weather team, speaking of weather and traveling, goes to Baltimore with the 1 seed in the AFC on the line. Baltimore favored by 3.5 points.
This is a game that I'm picking the home team. If this game was in Miami, I would pick Miami to win it. I like Baltimore at home. I think defensively, they have the speed and physicality needed to give them a chance against the most explosive offense in the NFL. And Miami's defense is humming. I talked about that at some point this week on this show. And I think that's huge for them. But I think Baltimore, in kind of their ability to control with their run game a little bit, and of course what that means with Lamar Jackson, I think they have enough in this one. Miami has what it takes to win this game. If they were at home, I'd pick them. I like the home team.
Yeah. So I'm with you in picking the Ravens to win the game. I think the pathway is clear for Miami for how they would win the game. They've done really well in December. They have 1 turnover offensively in December. So that's a huge boost for them. That has to continue against Baltimore. You saw what it looked like on Monday Night Football. If you give them short fields and turn the ball over a bunch, it's going to get ugly really quick.
Yeah.
The show has this as a coin toss game. It has Baltimore favored, Miami technically favored by a 0.5 point. So it's a coin toss game for the show. So they're taking Miami to cover 3.5. And I could see this being 23-20. I could see this being 2017. I think it's another low-scoring game. I said the same thing about Dolphins Cowboys, and sure enough, that was 22-20, and a kick at the end of the game decided it. I see this game being very similar to that.
Yeah.
And Baltimore at home, I have that. That said, I do think there's some potential letdown opportunities with Baltimore being on a short week and coming back from a West Coast travel trip. And Miami, I think, is a more desperate team coming in with them having more on the line for this game specifically, other than just clinching home field advantage. Miami's looking at, hey, this is clinching a division scenario and making sure we're getting home playoff games. That's kind of already in the works for Baltimore. I know that technically Cleveland's still mathematically eligible, but I think it's all right there for Miami.
The low scoring component may help Miami. I mean, they did it last week, right? They won that, kind of did the right things situationally at the end of the game to win and preserve it. But also, like, Tua's got a couple of game-winning drives this year. You know how many Lamar Jackson has?
0. I'm assuming 0 based off the
0.
way they set that up.
Yeah, 0. So we'll see. I think Baltimore would love to put Miami in chase mode, but then, I mean, Miami in chase mode, they can do that too, man. They can rip off points, as Baltimore knows, and they've of course done that this year. The Bills or the Dolphins have had their games this year where they got down a little bit, and then the next thing you know, you blink and they rip off touchdowns. And that's the thing about Miami. They're built to win, build leads. They're built to come from behind. They can play defense. They're a dangerous team. They got a path. I just think the home team, the defense, obviously with Baltimore,
it's easy to lean into the home team with a good defense, and
it's what it comes down to. Yeah.
All right. So Tampa is hosting the New Orleans Saints, a pivotal NFC South contest. Tampa favored by 2.5 points at home. The show thinks that's too low. So do I, personally. The show has it at Tampa minus 4.5. So the show is on Tampa to cover the 2.5 point spread. I am on Tampa to win the game.
Tampa. Yeah, this is crazy. Tampa.
So Bucks playing hot right now. Saints, another Jekyll and Hyde team, bad coaching. Derek Carr hasn't clicked. Yeah, there's enough there. Bills hosting the Patriots. Joe, Bills' opportunity to clinch a playoff berth with a win. Make it very easy for themselves. Win, take care of that. Obviously, there's a motivation factor for revenge for the Patriots winning earlier in the season. So I think there's a lot of motivation for the Bills' perspective. The spread is 13.5 points, though.
Yeah, different teams from when they played in Week 7. New England, after a 2-10 start, they're 2-2 in their last 4, and 1-2 of their last 3. Defense is humming, but it's a Bills team that's got to have it. They're at home. They've been really good at home. I think the Bills win.
I also think the Bills win. The show has the spread at the same as the sports books, 13.5, which means the show is on Buffalo to cover the spread. My confidence level in that, though, I would not be surprised if it's a 10-point game, just unless Buffalo hits some explosives in the run game and is able to kind of get some fast scores.
I'd agree.
Let's get one more here in this block, Joe. Eagles, Cardinals.
Pick 'em game, Eagles at home. Yes, thank you.
The show, the spread on FanDuel is 10.5 points. The show has that comfortably larger than 10.5 points. So the show has, and even amidst Philly struggles, so the show has the Eagles to cover the 10.5 point spread in the Jonathan Gannon revenge game. We're both on the Eagles to win the game, so we are all in on the Eagles on this show. We got 4 more 1 o'clock games, 3 4 o'clock games, and a Sunday night game that we got to get to next, Joe.
Yeah, so stick with us. Plenty more to pick, but folks, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to be certain that you have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And look, LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. And hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. Well, thankfully with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. And they even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process that much easier and that much quicker. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Our next game, the Jacksonville Jaguars trying to stop the skid. They're hosting the Carolina Panthers, currently the worst record in football. Jacksonville favored by 6.5 points, which I think is telling that the worst team in football is coming to town, and you're favored by less than a touchdown. So as far as the state of affairs with Jacksonville right now, that said, the show likes Jacksonville to cover the 6.5 point spread by a comfortable margin.
Critical game here. You think about these two teams coming into the league the same year, right? 96, their first season in the league. Kyle, they played 7 times. The Panthers have the edge, 4 wins to 3, including the last 3 and 4 of the last 5. So the Panthers are on a heater against Jacksonville. Doesn't matter. Jacksonville wins this game at home.
Wow. All that to turn the other cheek. I agree with you. I don't think there's any way Jacksonville, in spite of how bad it's been, drops this one. I think they pull this one out, take care of business.
Wouldn't surprise me, though. Wouldn't surprise me.
It would surprise me. It would surprise me.
If the Jags go down in this one, goodbye, right? Like they're not going. They still might, like a 7 seed might still happen, but you probably look at the Colts, which we're going to get to here in a second, and feel pretty good about them winning that division.
Well, Colts next. They're at home, favored by 3.5 points against the Raiders. Raiders, funnest team in football for me right now. That's a fun team. They
imagine you saying that in week 17 that the Raiders are a fun team.
Antonio Pierce's dudes are playing hard. What a pickup Jack Jones has been. Right. Obviously, talent's never been the question there. We'll see about the sustainability of that fit, but they're balling out a little bit. They're making this thing interesting. And this time, this team might finish second in the AFC West.
I think a lot of what you just said you can apply to the Colts, right? Like new coaching staff, backup quarterback, maybe not the roster top to bottom that you would think is in contention to win this division, but like they're kind of doing their thing as well. I know that they've had some ugly losses here lately to the Falcons and the Bengals, but it's kind of a couple of teams that have overachieved in my opinion this year.
And what they won that game against the Chiefs. Aiden O'Connell didn't score or didn't complete a pass for 3 quarters.
He's like 0 for 10. Second. Dude,
48 passing yards and won the game against the Chiefs.
What in the world, right?
Raiders defense has forced 7 turnovers the last 2 weeks. I think the Raiders win the game, Joe.
Ooh. Give me the Colts at home. Give me the Colts at home. That's not cost me at all, especially last week believing into the Colts, but we're going down with them again. I think them being at home in this game matters, and I think they can run the ball a little bit. We'll see. I don't feel great about it.
But They've gone over 100 yards rushing twice in the last 7 games.
That was the disappointing thing about last week. I think they get it together this week.
Okay, we'll find out. Looking forward to it. The show has the Colts covering 3.5 point spread. So I'm all by my lonesome. The Rams on the road against the Tyrod Taylor New York Giants.
Yep.
Doesn't matter who's playing quarterback for the Giants. Picking the Rams.
You see the way Matthew Stafford's playing quarterback for the Rams? I think that's the thing here.
Crazy good.
And that Giants defense has found no consistency. Spoiler, Giants fans, come back later on today. Got another episode. We're going to talk all about your football team. I hate that road dynamics here for sure. I just feel like the Rams are – the way Stafford played last week gives me a lot of confidence.
And Stafford even played balls out against the Ravens too. He's ripping it right now.
Yeah.
The show likes the Rams to cover the 5.5 point spread on the road. The San Francisco 49ers looking to get back on the horse against the Washington Commanders. That spread is 12.5 points. The show likes them to cover that comfortably, regardless if Ron, with 2 games left in his tenure as the head coach, is making a quarterback change to Jacoby Brissett or not.
Niners.
By a lot. Which takes us in the NFC West on the other side of the country. The Seahawks at home, hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers clinging on to the life preserver of AFC playoff eligibility. Need this one desperately. The Mike Tomlin legacy of winning records in Pittsburgh desperately needs this dub as well.
If they don't get it, like, it's still an unbelievable stretch of not having a losing record. So, like,
yes, it is.
But of course, you never want to see something like that. And guy, I like Seattle at home, man. Cross country trip. Seattle's found themselves a little bit lately. I mean, you go back to that Pittsburgh game and Mason Rudolph and the spark that they gave. I mean, some big plays of George Pickens was really the difference. And I feel like Seattle can potentially match up a little bit better. I like them at home. Give me the Hawks.
Yeah. At the end of the day, what was different for Pittsburgh other than Mason being willing to throw some of those shots down the field and actually accurately putting them in George Pickens's area vicinity to make the play on the ball?
Yeah.
Right. I still think there's concerns about the viability of the offense. I don't think you're going to have the same vertical passing success on a weekly basis as what you did against Cincinnati with what their corner and secondary situations look like this year, which has been one of the sore spots for that team. I'm with you. I think Seattle takes care of business. The show likes Seattle to cover the 3.5 point spread, so we're all in on Seattle on the show.
Yep.
The Chiefs, man, what a weird line this game is. What a weird game in general, just based on what Kansas City looks like right now. Chiefs at home against the Bengals, favored by a touchdown, Joe. This is one of the 4 o'clock. We're into the 4 o'clock games as of the Seattle game.
I like the Chiefs at home. Jake Browning, I think the dust fell off a little bit, turned into kind of who I thought Jake Browning would be in the NFL.
Clock struck midnight, we came back to a pumpkin.
It did. And the Chiefs defense is good. And I just think that's a bad matchup for Browning. Mahomes at home.
What is the status of Jamar Chase, who didn't play last week?
He can be healthy as can be, and I'm still picking the Chiefs. But
Jamar Chase worked on the side rehab field, and Cam Taylor-Britt took part in practice. It was helpful. I'll pick the Chiefs. Can I see this being a weird game? Yeah. The Chiefs are coming off a weird game with what they just played against the Raiders. So obviously they scored 2 defensive touchdowns in 7 seconds. That's going to win you the football game. They won by 6 points, so I get it. Kansas City's got to get themselves together. They play the Chargers next week. They have an opportunity to lock in they'd be a top 3 seed no matter what if they run the table, right? Because they'd be the 2 or the 3, depending on what happens in the AFC East.
Yep.
So I think they win. The show likes them to cover the 7-point spread. This is one of those games I do just look at it with an eyebrow up, though. And I'm curious with Cincinnati because of how well they had played before last week. Did the clock really strike midnight, or was last week an aberration where Murphy's Law, everything that could go wrong did?
Brother, if Mahomes lose back-to-back weeks at Arrowhead to Aiden O'Connell and Jake Browning, it just can't happen, dude. I don't care who the receivers are. I don't care.
You're right. Denver, speaking of quarterback changes, Jarrett Stidham behind center. Hosting the LA Chargers with Easton Stick and company coming to town. The spread is 3.5. The show likes the Chargers to cover the spread. With the quarterback change, I would not be surprised if the Chargers won outright.
I agree.
Because for as bad as Russell Wilson is, he better than Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah.
This is an economic decision for Denver more than anything else.
And the Chargers, gave the Bills all they could handle on Saturday night, with Giff Smith as the interim head coach and all the players they were missing. Familiar opponent, right? These guys know each other. I think that helps. But I just don't love the idea of Jarrett Stidham in his first start under these circumstances against a Chargers team that is they're not shriveling up, man. They're not going to. They're going to come out and compete. And I think you have mixed messaging. You have a Chargers team that is ready to, do everything they can to win football games, and Denver just benched your starting quarterback. Right. You know what I mean? Come on, we have different things going on here. I'm picking the Chargers on the road to win this game.
And the Broncos doing this while still mathematically being
they're alive. They're alive. Yeah. Insane.
We don't think so after this week though, because we're all in on the Chargers.
Yeah, we'll leave you growl it up next week for Denver.
That'll be fun. Talk about the dead cap situation that the Broncos are going to be facing here with that decision coming up. So that won't be a part of the Leave Your Grail conversation. That'll be part of the key decisions element. The last game, Sunday Night Football, the Packers visiting the Vikings. Joe, Vikings at home favored by 2. No Jair Alexander. Presume he won't let himself onto the field for the coin toss in this one as well because he's suspended.
The weirdest thing I've ever seen in an NFL game. And then the way he acted afterwards is even more weird to me.
Right. And then the coaches are like, yeah, okay. No, this ain't going to fly, buddy. I like the Vikings at home. The Packers, I want to like the Packers. I was ready to get on board about, a month ago. They just haven't clicked. And I think Minnesota can get the job done. They gave Detroit everything they could handle last week with the 6-point margin of victory for Detroit in that clinching scenario. I think the Vikings still have the playoffs out in front of them. Give me the Vikings at home.
Boy, oh boy, do I hate this game.
Yeah, I have no confidence in this game, but it's which team do I trust the most in spite of not trusting either one?
Nick Mullins? Maybe? I don't know, man. I think part of my process here is I just don't want to be different than you on this game. That's my entire process. I'm picking the same team that you are, the Vikings.
At home.
Sure.
Okay. We'll lock it in. That is our Week 17 preview. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'm Kyle Krabs. He's Joe Marino. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. We appreciate you guys checking out the show. Joe already teased it. Doubleheader today. Levy Grail, New York Giants coming up next. Looking forward to it. So come on back. You can find us again on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. That's going to do it for us on this episode of Locked On NFL Scouting.